Okay, a little bit later in the episode, I'm going to tell you more about the hormone fixer because I know you're dying to know. This little bad boy supplement that I created, if I do say so myself, is amazing at so many things, so many benefits. So it raises your natural testosterone, ladies, that GSD hormone. It helps with weight loss. It helps improve insulin sensitivity. It helps with anti-aging. It increases your own growth hormone, the anti-aging hormone that helps with the wrinkles and the stamina, energy, focus, brain. It also helps with your mood and lowers your response to stress. So you're just going to have to wait a little bit more. We'll tell you more about it. The hormone fixer. So this is going to be a game changer for you. And you can probably hear the excitement in my voice. The latest introduction, the latest member of the family to the fixer line is Metabolism Fixer. And this, oh my God, I formulated this just for all my people out there that need to lose weight, that need help in the weight loss department, that can't lose weight no matter what they do, that feel like they have a slow metabolism, and that might be thinking of trying all those peptides out there, you know, the Beverly Hills soccer mom drug of choice for weight loss peptides. Or even if you're on them already and you're like, man, these are really expensive and I'm still not losing weight, add in Metabolism Fixer. Here's what I did. I took the power of T2, which increases your basal metabolic rate while you are sitting there watching Netflix. You're burning fat while you're watching Netflix. I combined it with a very unique patented ingredient called Suppressa. Suppressa has multiple clinical trials backing its efficacy in reducing your appetite, decreasing snacking, and providing way more control over your food intake. It is amazing. We also see improved emotional well-being, just decreased food cravings all around, reduced hunger, and weight management. Add on top of that, we have green tea extract, we have purple forest purple tea extract, both of which affect the metabolism in a very positive way without the jitters of normal fat burning supplements out there from the 1980s and 90s, right? The ones that made you feel like you're having a heart attack. You will not have that in any of my supplements, Thyroid Fixer or Metabolism Fixer. But Metabolism Fixer, ooh, yeah, we kicked it up a notch. It is in powder form, so you can drink it through your day. It's going to flavor your water. We got orange crush and refreshing citrus. I love them both. It is going to keep you under control all day long. So you throw a couple scoops in your water bottle in the morning, throw a scoop or two in your water bottle throughout the day. You will have fat burning and appetite control the entire day for what? An eighth of a price of the peptides? Oh my God, you can't go wrong. So grab some Metabolism Fixer today. Please let me know how you do on it. I am super excited for you. Super excited. Hey everyone, we are talking all things fertility today. And I know many of you are struggling with fertility or have struggled in the past. Many of my thyroid patients have had, unfortunately, multiple miscarriages and have gone through that very tiring and frustrating trying to get pregnant. So I have decided to bring on my dear friend and fertility expert, Sarah Clark. So let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we're just going to deep dive into this conversation all together here. So Sarah, when she was 28 years old, she received a diagnosis of premature ovarian failure. And I know many of you have heard those words before as well. She accepted the diagnosis and had both her children through in vitro fertilization. Years later, she realized that the root cause of her infertility was a food sensitivity and later a gut infection. She is a certified life coach with accreditation from the International Coaches Federation and a health coach with training from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. She's the author of Fabulously Fertile, Supercharge Your Fertility Naturally. Her fertility coaching program, which includes functional lab testing, supports couples to make diet and lifestyle changes that dramatically improve the chances of a healthy pregnancy and baby. On her Get Pregnant Naturally podcast, which I have been on, she shares that with functional medicine and natural fertility solutions, we can eventually reverse infertility, which is amazing. And that will be on iTunes and Spotify. We will definitely have all of the links in the show notes. Miss Sarah, welcome. Welcome. Thank you for joining us and bringing your knowledge here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, like I said, and I mean, you see this in your clinic all the time. We've talked before, thyroid disorders, hormone imbalances, and fertility. So let's start there and talk about the connection, because most of my listeners are thyroid patients.
Yeah, we see it all the time with themes with so we're typically working with couples that have been told, similar to myself, that, donor eggs are your only option. They've tried naturally for 2 years, or they've been through at least one failed IUI or IVF. It hasn't worked. And they typically have been told that their TSH is normal, similar to myself, where, oh, your TSH is normal. It was 3.5. My hair was falling out. My skin was as dry as a lizard. My hands and feet were freezing, but no, your thyroid's fine. And I didn't discover this till, years later after my premature ovarian insufficiency diagnosis. So we see this a lot where it's normal. No one's done a deep dive into the full panel and, looking at antibodies more. So yeah, and we'd say, like, I'd go almost to say 100% of people we work with, something's going on with the thyroid, be it, undiagnosed, and we're not diagnosing, but be it, undiagnosed Hashis or Graves, typically more Hashimoto's, subclinical thyroid issues, so things to do with the liver and the gut, and then hypothyroidism, like myself. So we see that as a theme with the couples that we're working with, and even the men are having issues with thyroid too, but typically more the women, because we're dealing with female factor infertility.
Right. So are those is that one of the first things that you check, or what do you tend to focus on when someone walks into your clinic and let's say they have had multiple miscarriages, they are in the same boat that you were dealing with infertility? What do you check first?
Yeah, so we're doing a deep dive with testing. So as part of my team, we have functional nutrition practitioners, fertility coaches, and we have a physician that does case reviews for us. So we will look at blood chemistry. We're doing, a deep dive into, blood sugar, thyroid, the whole gamut, vitamin D, more, and really looking at a full panel. Most times they've only had the TSH being done before. So we're looking at the full panel and all of this. So we're not diagnosing, but all of this tells a story, kind of looking at their health history, looking at all the, quite a lot of blood chemistry we're looking at. And then we're also looking at functional testing. We're typically starting off with food sensitivity testing. We're using Vibrant America with the Zoomer test. Mm-hmm. And then we're also doing genetics testing. And it's not that, here's your genes, you're doomed. It's here's your genetics. And we're doing a female hormone panel. And we can look to see, what is it for your thyroid? What is it for blood sugar? What that your genes are telling us. Then we can take those targeted diet and lifestyle changes based on the genetics. And then we're also looking at a stool test. We're doing the GI map stool test. Mm-hmm. We see the majority of our people, probably similar to what you're seeing with parasites and bacterial infections, fungal infections, and more. And most people, when they're dealing with a fertility issue and a thyroid issue, the last place they're going to think of is like, oh, wait, I have a parasite or there's a fungal infection going on. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And those correlate with fertility. How would a parasite and your gut health correlate with fertility?
Yeah, because really it's basically if you've got something going on in your gut, if there's an infection, you can eat the cleanest, gluten-free, take out all those top allergens. But if there's an infection in there, that's impacting your gut health, which then in turn will, impact your fertility. So it is that inflammation. Our thing is, how do we reduce inflammation all around, from a food sensitivity to a gut infection, to environmental toxins, to mental emotional stress? How do we reduce all of it? Not all at once, because that could be, super overwhelming, but how do we reduce it? And then the body comes back into balance, and it wants to conceive. So it's sort of, well, why, I'm going towards IVF or an IUI is pushing it with hormones. And then we see people, so similar to my story, I was diagnosed with premature ovarian insufficiency at 28, and I was told the only way to have children is with donor eggs. And I went and had both my kids with donor eggs. And my daughter's 20, my son's 17. So this is, many years ago when you said donor eggs, people are like, I don't even know what that is. And then
Right.
both my kids had, like my daughter had ear infections, a lot of ear infections. What did we do? We gave them gave her antibiotics, had tubes
Right.
in her ears, found out later there was a severe dairy and gluten sensitivity. And it went into a whole bunch of other issues with food. And we started, we took the food out, and then some of those issues she had went away. And same with my son. He had chronic strep throat. I remember like one year, it must have been like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 rounds of antibiotics over and
Oh,
over and over again. We're like, okay, get the banana, the little banana. And we just gave them so many antibiotics when the kids were younger. And so I believe if I had worked on my health beforehand, had have known, like, I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't figure this out until years later. The food sensitivities, the gut infections, the chronic stress. I wouldn't even have said I was stressed, but the chronic stress I was under. Because for me, after I had my kids, it went into chronic bladder infections. So was peeing blood again. What did I do? I took a whole whack of antibiotics over
yep.
and over and over again. I'm just like, just fix me, give me the antibiotics.
Right.
That just made it worse. I had
Right.
chronic sinusitis. So every cold went to a sinus infection. Again, I'm like, I went to the doctor, give me the antibiotics. Had no
Yep.
clue that when I changed my diet, lo and behold, I had chronic yeast infections, dandruff, toenail infections. I caught every cold and flu that went by. Not until I changed my diet, addressed those gut infections. And because I was diagnosed with premature ovarian insufficiency after I had my kids, I went on HRT.
Right.
So I was on birth control for years after that. And then
Yep.
HRT, that then can predispose you to gut infections and food sensitivities. And
Right.
then also prior to that, I was also on birth control. So probably like 15 years of birth control, which impacts my microbiome, the health of my gut and leaky gut. I remember doing like a food sensitivity test, and every food that I loved came back, and I was, sensitive to it. All my
Yep.
avocados and all these healthy foods I thought I was eating was sensitive to it. And then as I healed my gut, got it back online, then eventually I could bring most of those foods back. If the food was like super high, then I didn't bring it back, but most of
Right.
them coming back. So yeah.
And there are those main foods that's like, you and I agree, everybody should be cutting out, right? I mean, nobody should really be eating high amounts of soy or gluten and wheat and grains. I mean, so there's those main, foods that we say probably everybody is sensitive to. But I'm glad you brought that up, that you can reintroduce them, because I know a lot of people would be kind of freaking out a little bit, like, wait a minute, you said that all of your foods that you love, you had to take out. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And so let me give you a typical of what I see, and we can kind of play with this case study. So for me, I mean, most patients, I do get a couple that will come to me with the goal of getting pregnant, right?
Mhm.
But most of the time they're seeing you, the fertility expert. But I'll get a patient that comes in, just like you said, they've been on birth control for years. And listen, I was too. And no one told me that, hey, birth control is totally synthetic. It will tank your thyroid. So it will actually start affecting thyroid function. And then it's going to start affecting those sex hormones. So when you come off of it and you want to get pregnant, you might be in your 20s, you might be early 30s, but your hormonal profile is going to look like you're 75. So woman comes in on birth control. Oh, look, undiagnosed thyroid problem because all the doctors were testing for TSH. And then we look at their hormones, and doctors seem to think that women only have estrogen. So we might have that on a test, and that's it. No progesterone, no LH, no FSH, no AMH. And then we start to work on that, and we start to work on changes, like you said, taking down the inflammation. And I have had a couple patients that I go, oh yeah, I got like 3 women pregnant, haha, because we fixed everything. And then they're like, hey, Dr. Amie, I'm pregnant. I'm like, well, yeah, because you took down the inflammation, we fixed your thyroid, and we balanced your hormones out. So is that almost the same? I mean, a little bit different, because you have people coming to you saying, Sarah, I want to get pregnant. But is that the kind of the same path that you see?
Essentially the same philosophy, right? Yeah, where you're reduce the inflammation, and then next thing you know, and it is some people that we're working with, like they tried naturally for 2 years. They've typically gone through like multiple failed IVFs, because they're trying to push their body to have this work, and then no one's addressed those those missed healing opportunities. So it is, we take a mind, body, spirit approach, because we do, work on all the biochemical, get all that worked out with our nutrition practitioners. We also have a fertility coach, because
Yep.
dealing with infertility can impact all aspects of your life, from your relationships to your social life to your career. You may stay in a job longer than what you really want to because you're waiting to go on mat leave. So then you
Yep.
can quit. People around you, there's, making, pregnancy announcements, baby showers, even your church or your place of worship, you're kind of, there's families everywhere. So even seeing, especially for secondary infertility, seeing a family could be really triggering because, you feel there's a person missing in your family. So the mind piece and the spiritual piece of this, actually believing, especially if an RE has told you, sorry, you're going to struggle. You've got a very low chance of this working, or, it'll never work for you. The only option you have is donor eggs, or your only option, it has to be IVF. That can get embedded in your subconscious, and you can kind of just almost self-sabotage yourself or second guess that, that maybe the RE hasn't told you about the targeted diet and lifestyle changes can be impactful, and you don't even know. So then you maybe there's some self-doubt, then you can self-sabotage. Making these diet and lifestyle changes, it's maybe simple but not easy. And if you've got that in the back of your mind niggling away, going, I don't think this is going to work, and we're telling you to take out some of your favorite foods, perhaps not forever.
Yeah.
So there is the mindset piece and the spiritual piece of actually believing it is key. It's not just like the biochemical. And I think this is just something that will impact, as I say, every aspect of your life. And so to have support to call yourself out, and we typically work with, type A busy professionals, like overachievers and things like that, where everything in this sort of thing, everything's worked. So they're like, that's going to throw the kitchen sink at this problem.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like this huge to-do list of things. And obviously with the functional side of things, there is a to-do list of things you have to do, but also we want you to slow down, and like that chronic stress piece. Like I have to always work on that, because for me, I'm like, oh, great, look at all these things. I'm excited. Let's do all these stuff. But how has that impacted my health? And it is to be able to still move forward, but be able to pull back.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought up the mind, body, spirit piece, because I think that's so important for anyone listening. That is such a key component. And we're going to come back to the elimination foods and food sensitivities, but I want to stay on that mindset piece, because you said something very interesting. I think far too often we believe what we are told by the medical system. So just like you mentioned earlier, if you're told, well, you have premature ovarian failure, this is your only option, sorry, that gets in your head and you literally start believing that. So what we believe, I mean, our mind can control our body. So if you keep repeating over to yourself, and if you are dealing with type A's, like you said, Sarah, you have these people that are like, I am such a failure. It is my fault. What can I do? Because type A's want to control. So now this is something that they feel like they can't control, because they've been told by the conventional medicine system they can't control it. And then they actually start believing their diagnosis or their fate that they've been given by their doctor. So I think breaking out of that mindset, that almost that why me mindset, that why can't I control this mindset, and moving forward with hope, I think is incredibly, incredibly important.
Yeah, it's very empowering too. That's why I love the functional approach, right? Where you're like, there's things I can do. For someone who's like, let's do something. It's like, that's perfect for someone like us, right? Where you want to actually take action. So there's things we can do in a very targeted approach. Although, there's a lot of people will waste time doing a DIY thing where you're doing the fertility superfoods, the fertility fads, generalized recommendations, diets that may have worked for other people, but are they right for you? So it's like that very targeted approach, and using the testing to then let's move this forward, right? Because most people, well, the moment you've decided to start expanding your family, you want to be pregnant now. It doesn't matter if you're 28, 38, you are ready. And so that's why, with IVF and things like that, it's like, good, we'll get you going the next month. And, is that the right way, where your body's trying to say to you, hey, wait a minute, there's a problem here, and we're forcing it. And then how is your postpartum period? How is the health of your children?
Right.
We plan for a wedding 12 to 18 months. Then on month 1, we want our child to come, well, how about we switch that around? Why do we spend all that time planning for the wedding? Let's plan for our children.
See, I'm so glad you mentioned that too, because I always say, now I don't have children, but I have seen women rush into it. And there are often times where I'll have a patient that is like, we are planning on trying. I go, well, I'm glad we're doing this now, because let's get you balanced. Let's get you healthy so that when you do conceive, just like you said, Sarah, even the baby is healthy and your pregnancy is healthy and post-pregnancy is healthy. I have seen far too often, and especially in the thyroid space, much higher risk of developmental delays, much higher rates, really, not even risk, much higher rates of autism and developmental delays, because women rush to it without getting everything under control. And then basically, if your pregnancy takes and if you carry all the way to term, that baby was developing in a very inflamed body. And sometimes that's not the best approach. So I'm really happy that you mentioned let's slow down. Let's take 12 months if we have to get your body primed and ready. So we're talking athletic greens again, because I've been using it every single day. And when I start my day with AG, it lays down the foundation for better absorption of everything. So better absorption of nutrients from my food, better absorption of my supplements that I want to actually have a therapeutic action in my body. So athletic greens is laying that down. I know I'm not getting in all the nutrients I need. And since my goal is optimal health and good skin, I need supplements that work. And I don't want to take a million pills a day. Not this girl. So this is where athletic greens came in. I decided to give them a try a while ago because of their origin. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover, costing him $100 a day. So he said enough and used science to create his own. He also did multiple variations to perfect the taste, which I mad respect. AG contains 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens that just help you start your day right. It supports your gut health, your nervous system, for my peeps that are anxious and a little bit jittery, your immune system, your energy, recover, focus, and of course, aging. There's where the good skin comes in. So I do 1 scoop in 8 ounces of water after my morning workout. Sometimes I'll start the day with it before I even drink coffee, definitely before I consume any food for the day. Boom, shake and drink. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything. And I personally am recommending that you try it out. So to make it easy, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Just visit athleticgreens.com/Dr. Amie. That's DRAMIE. Don't spell doctor out, just DRAMIE. We'll have it in the show notes. And then you can finally take ownership of your health, pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Yeah, and also reducing the risk of miscarriage. So during our protocol, and our average protocol is about 3 to 4 months, and we ask people not to try to conceive during that time. And many people are like, are you kidding me? Like, you want me to not? That's like, so
that's all I've been doing. Right.
Exactly. Now you want me not to do it. So then we'll say to them, look, let's take it month by month. So you'll see each month, and then, you're always in charge. So then we can back off on some of the supplements. But if we're addressing H. pylori, you've got, your low stomach acid, maybe you're not absorbing all your nutrients. Mm-hmm. We're addressing a giardia, like a gut infection. We want to have you do the full protocol. So then you can optimize it, get rid of it. We want to retest to make sure it's no longer there. So, but you're always in charge. So each month we look at it together. And then if you're like, I just can't go any further, then you'll be able to, look at the pros and the cons of going forward. To me, it's a short period of time in the grand scheme of your life. But, as I said before, we get it of, where people are, we meet people where they are, but it is one step back for, one step back for a giant leap forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It is a very short amount of time to spend on yourself in the whole grand scheme of things. So yeah, no, I'm so happy you mentioned that. Now, you talked a little bit about fertility foods. So are there ones that you really like? Are there things that you dislike? I mean, how do you list out your food choices for people, or is it very targeted to them?
It is very personalized, right? So it is, you want to make sure you have the more proteins and fats, like healthy fats, lean, like wild caught fish, grass-fed meats. You can do a little bit of grains if you tolerate it, if there's no blood sugar issues. Obviously, lots of green leafy vegetables. And so a lot of people are low on the fat piece, on the healthy fats. And we see also in the blood chemistry too, that they potentially could be low on protein. So we don't subscribe to any vegan, paleo, whatever it is. But many people get kind of married to a certain diet, be it a plant-based diet. And, it is that diet right for you. And so we just ask people to have an open mind. If you're very married to that and that's what you're doing it, obviously there's religious reasons that for certain foods, but we ask people to have an open mind to see, is that diet right for you? We typically start off with elimination diet, which can sound hardcore, but really you're just taking out the top inflammatory foods for 10 days and then systematically reintroducing them over the course of 30 days, keeping out gluten the longest. And then as you bring the foods back in, you're really seeing how those foods impact your body. So are they, when you bring back in corn, does it give you sinus issues? When you bring back in dairy, does your stomach get, go off? When you bring back in eggs, do you get a headache? And so to be honest on those, especially with your favorite food, like favorite food is cheese. So to be honest, as you bring the food back in, there's a symptom checklist. So if you mark down any kind of symptoms you have, if you have any symptoms, you don't reintroduce that food. You keep it out for 60 to 90, and we tweak it further with food sensitivity testing. So it's a very targeted approach with the food. And then as you heal your gut, typically some of these foods that you may have been insensitive to, you can bring them back in. But yeah, I think it's people maybe gluten light, like they've kind of like, I've dabbled around with gluten a little bit, or maybe they're completely gluten free, but they're intolerant to some of the cross reactors. So maybe they're pounding down gluten free oats, thinking those are good, but there's cross contamination in there, or like for me, so I don't do dairy, gluten, corn, and I don't do nuts as well. So like for me, I was dairy and gluten free. And then corn, like a major cross reactor for me. And now I have it just gives me like a blinding headache. So my body identifies it as gluten. And so I thought I could have, like a while ago, I was like, I think I can have some corn chips again. And I kept having them. And I'm like, why is this headache? And then I realized, I'm like, yeah, no, corn is still not good for me. And so it is, some of that can suck, right? But it is to know that these are foods that are right for me. And, if you go to, and I'm a huge foodie, I love eating out and things like that. So it's not about deprivation and things are going to suck. It's just figuring out how this is right for you. And obviously people that are on the fertility journey have like a massive why of why they want to do this. And to me, it's empowering. You have to kind of flip the script, not like, what am I giving up? It's like, what am I gaining? I'm going to eat awesome food that fuels my body. I'm going to feel freaking great. And I'm helping I'm helping my fertility.
Right. That makes complete sense. Absolutely. So I want to talk about a couple different things here. Let's start with the testing, because I know you do a lot of functional testing. I'm a huge fan of just testing to get that full picture of someone so that you can really target the protocols to them. I always tell people, listen, we can tell a lot from your blood because, and from any kind of testing that we do, because that actually directs us in what supplements you need and what diet you have to be on and lowering your inflammation. Now, what is the theme that you see when someone presents with a low AMH and a high FSH? Can you tell the listeners what those are and what themes you see with that?
Yeah, so the themes we see, so the first one is non-celiac gluten sensitivity we see when we run our food sensitivity tests. And there's no perfect food sensitivity test. It's a snapshot in time. But really, we see gluten off the chart. Like, don't touch it. And it's also showing up actually in the stool test as well, that even if the anti-gliadin that's showing up there, and then the cross reactors. So we see it like really bad. And we're typically dealing with people that either they will have a fertility diagnosis as perhaps as well as an autoimmune issue. And again, either it's like a Hashimoto's or a celiac. So even if they're gluten-free, the cross reactors body can still, recognize those as gluten. And then we could see some other autoimmune issues with it. And sometimes they're saying, premature ovarian insufficiency in itself. In 1/5 of the cases, it can be. Like, even they're saying that can be an autoimmune issue in itself. And so it can actually do well on an AIP diet, autoimmune protocol diet. Yeah. So we see non-celiac gluten sensitivity. Like we said before, we see a thyroid issue with, like, and I do a master class and I'll ask like 300 people, how's your TSH? And they're all like, normal, all goes down the list, normal, 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 normal. Meanwhile, they're dealing with low AMH, basically being told their egg reserve is practically done. Their FSH is, above 20. They've got problems, but everyone's saying their thyroid is normal because no one has dug deeper into either they've, we're not diagnosing, but they might have been, no one's diagnosed potentially a Hashey's or a Graves. Maybe no one's even looked at their, the T3, T4, all of those numbers to look at the thyroid. So the thyroid is completely overlooked, and especially if there's irregular periods, recurrent miscarriage, ovulation disorders. So to really dig into the thyroid piece is key. We see, what else we see for themes? We see people that have been on long-term hormonal birth control, and I'll say, well, why did you go on the pill? And typically it was not for prevention. It was because, oh wait, they had heavy periods, they had irregular periods, they had acne. So similar to myself, where in my teens, my period was like, it was so heavy, I'd come and I literally faint. Like, I remember like passing out 2 or 3 times with the heavy amount of blood that was coming out of this thing. And so I was put on the pill, and then I had great skin in my teens, and then early 20s, a lot of acne, kind of just in the chin area, hormonal, right? Acne came on. So they put me on the pill. Well, none of that, obviously it regulated the cycle, but it was a Band-Aid approach. And when I came off, my cycle was, then it didn't come back. And
all messed up. Yeah.
So we see people being prescribed the pill as a Band-Aid approach. And then not to say that everyone that goes on the pill then comes off and is dealing with a fertility issue, but people that come to me, there's typically been some issues beforehand, or they might have had acne, they want an Accutane, which then is like an atomic bomb going off the body for the, just to disrupts the microbiome, then leading to food sensitivities and gut infections. And so we see birth control as an issue. We see a lot of like a type A. We work with a lot of people that are in the medical profession. So they've, like a lot of ER doctors that have experienced, not funny, but experience a lot of trauma, right? That's a high stress, and dealing with low AMH and high FSH, complete burnout. And so unrecognized trauma is around these diagnoses, from either the diagnosis itself is traumatic, or childhood trauma, a trauma piece has not been identified. We see that a lot. And then we see that, then also the autoimmune piece, that is, people will say, oh, they'll tell me they have low AMH and high FSH and diminished ovarian reserve or premature ovarian insufficiency. And then, oh, by the way, I've got an autoimmune issue. Kind of like, oh, it's just, I got irritable bowel, or not irritable, I have Crohn's disease or colitis, or, oh yeah, I've got, Hashey's as a by the way, which, like, that's a huge clue to dig into. And it's not a by the way. And in conventional medicine, it would be, again, we're forcing you down that IVF path. And I don't think anyone goes into IVF or donor eggs, for that matter, lightly. They've typically done a lot of things before they come to that decision, but they may just think that is the only option. Like, my OBGYN diagnosed me with a premature ovarian insufficiency. She reached up on her shelf, gave me the IVF brochure and said, off you go. And I went, okay. I didn't get a second opinion. I didn't talk to anybody. Like, I literally was like, okay, here I go. Got to go to donor eggs. And looking back, I'm like, what the heck was I? But I actually thought I thought I had it easier than other people. I thought I didn't have to go through the injections, to trying to get my own eggs to work. I reframed it that I had it easier. Also, people will look at the fact that you had donor eggs was not easier at all, but that's how my mind works. I just reframe and move on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, you were in that trusting state. You were in that state of, well, this is what my doctor's telling me. Obviously, I was tested, so this is what I have to do. Next step, next step, next step. And I think it's very easy to get caught up in that, in the medical system, in what we're being told, without kind of expanding our own minds and looking outside of the box. And then the stress piece. I mean, so it was interesting. I was talking with my best friend this weekend. She has a friend that is 40. And of course, as you know, if you're 40, you're technically labeled old. in the whole geriatric
Yeah.
and the fertility world. So she was told, and my best friend brought up a really great point. She was told that she has lazy follicles. And my friend goes, that's almost like you're putting it on the woman. Oh, you have lazy they didn't even test the guy yet. Oh, you have lazy follicles. So, it's going to be really tough getting pregnant. I think that they did give her an IVF pamphlet actually, but it's kind of coming back to that, just tying everything that you're talking about together, the stress piece, the kind of following blindly, not realizing that there are alternatives, not realizing that there are people like you out there that women can work with to do this naturally, where they don't have to go the IVF route, because let's face it, it's follow the money trail with IVF.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's mad money. So what would you say to a woman that might be sitting here almost kind of taking the blame for not being able to get pregnant?
Yeah, so like a lot of this, obviously, so we coach couples, and even though it's female factor infertility that we're typically dealing with, we always will, unless the person is single by choice, we always will coach the couple, because there's always things that the male partner can do to optimize his preconception health. And even if his sperm is fine, especially when it's not, there's things we can do. And so many times the men, like the woman she's changed her diet, she's taken heaps of supplements, he might be taking his multi, he might be doing a few things, but he may not know what to do. And so we coach him together. He has his own goals, and then they start eating together. Because this can really either tear your relationship apart or bring you back together. So doing this together, making these changes, setting up the foundation for a healthy pregnancy. And so if someone's feeling, in kind of in a lost place, is to do this with your partner and look at it, to reframe it that, there's things we can do to really work on our health. And it's not just, myopically focusing on the fertility diagnosis. What else is going on? Like, do you have, typically there's other issues with your health that are going on here. It's not just, oh my goodness, now my fertility's, gone away. I think I had food sensitivities when I was 12. I had like dark circles under my eyes, which is an indicator of that. I had, at one point, my jaw felt like I couldn't even open it, like TMJ, like high stress. I had dandruff, like I had all these different, weird health symptoms. So just to look deeper. And I hear a lot of people saying, I feel broken. I feel, I'm, as a woman, this is what we're meant, we're sort of biologically, to be able to conceive. I mean, the one thing you can't do, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to blame, and just to recognize that, to see if that's what you're doing. If you're in a loop of blaming yourself, recognize, like, to lessen the judgment. A lot of times, if we're in a group format, if you're like showing compassion to someone else, then you can shine it back to yourself. Like, you'd never talk to yourself the way sometimes we all talk to ourselves, right? So it is to recognize those thoughts, limiting beliefs, and crap we're telling ourselves, and to, you can do the affirmations, the visualizations, and that's kind of like fake it till you make it. So those can be helpful, right? So whatever works for you from a mindfulness standpoint, or it might just be the first step is like, oh wait, I've been talking crap to myself about this for years, or whatever it may be, and to grant yourself some grace on this journey, because it can really, as I said before, it like impacts all aspects of your life.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you preach the message of hope. I always preach the message of hope as well. I think that's one thing that you have to hold on to in order to keep going and to not give up. So if you would leave our listeners with one thing, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I really believe that, your body, it's whispering to you. So it'll whisper to you every day. And when you ignore the signals, it'll start shouting at you in the form of disease. So, to listen to those whispers, and don't doubt yourself. Like, really like get into your intuition here. And we all have intuition. We're all intuitive. Don't let anyone second guess yourself. Get that board of directors, and I can't include your RE, your OBGYN, your fertility coach, your nutrition practitioner. It's not all at once, but you're in the center, and you're the connector of your own healing, and you're in charge.
Yep. That's fantastic. And I always say that too, Sarah. I say, if your body is giving you a sign, or a symptom rather, it is a sign that there is something going on, because we were not built to be sick and have all of these things as our body is shouting at us. That's not normal. So if you're told that you're normal, or if the Hashimoto's diagnosis is being blown off, no, we have to dig deeper and actually find that answer, because there is one. There's always an answer, and there's always a direction that we can go.
Absolutely. Yeah. These symptoms can be common, but not normal. So
right.
Dig deeper.
So you are giving a gift. It is a fertility challenge. I'm going to put that link in the show notes as well. But if you want to tell people about that and how to find you, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so they can go to Fertility Diet Freebie, so fertilitydietfreebie.com, and in there there's seasonal challenges. Right now we're doing a spring one, and so it's all foods that are free of the top allergens and prepared by a chef, and really helping to enhance fertility. So to do this with your partner, so pick a time and download the guide and get eating, and it's like awesome foods for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and not about drinking green juice and starving. It's like eating meats and fish and, big breakfasts and things like that to really, prepare your body for a baby. So there's that. And you can find me on Get Pregnant Naturally. It's on iTunes or Stitcher.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely be sure to listen to her podcast. It's amazing. It's going to give you guys a ton of information. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining us and gracing us with your knowledge. And this is going to help a ton of women out there. I know it is, from the hope to the changes to finding you and working with you. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Amie.
So now that you've heard all about the hormone fixer, I'm going to give you a challenge. If you actually listened to this podcast all the way to the end and you're still listening, you can use the code ThyroidFix10, 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 and get 10% off my store. This is only for people that listened all the way to the end. I want to know what you think about my products. Make sure you let me know. Love y'all.